cut 2,000 cubits. That's over 3,000 feet, by the way. By measure, come not near unto it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way heretofore. There it is right there. You've not passed this way before. Father, I come tonight again in Jesus' precious name, by the blood of Christ, into your presence, needing so much strength and anointing tonight. And I pray you just bless me as I preach. I pray that we'll all be challenged by your word tonight. I thank and praise you for us. In your name I pray you praise. Amen. Joshua said, you're about to go somewhere that you've never been before. And that was, of course, the promised land. Now, and the message tonight is, boldly go where you've never been. And where would that be? That'd be, for Israel, it was the promised land, but for you and me and Christians, it's the abundant life. It's stepping out by faith and trusting God and obeying God for His blessings. Amen. You see, they've never been there before. There's a reason for that, as we all know that. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But anyway, Joshua now gathered the nation of Israel together. Again, they've been 40 years in the wilderness. If you remember, no adult 20 years old and older made it. Now all of these were, except for Joshua and Caleb, so all of these were either born in Egypt and were under 20, and some may have been even born in, probably many of them were born in the wilderness. And so, that's certainly, now some of the children, of course, traveled for 40 years, and now they're 40 years older than they were when they reached there from 40 years earlier. Let's look at that for a minute and challenge you tonight to boldly go where you've never been. Well, most Christians or believers spend most of their lives in the wilderness, as we see. Very few live a life of blessings and victory. Very few live in that place. Not necessarily wealthy, but certainly blessed. Amen? Notice three simple thoughts for a few minutes tonight. Notice the people. Two things about them. They were first a saved people. These were the Hebrew children, many of whom who had been born in Egypt. Some, like I say, 40 years. These 19-year-olds and younger, I'm sure many of them married and have had children in those 40 years. They were certainly a safeguarded people, as God had protected them and led them, as I preached this past Sunday on part of this, how He led them by fire at night and by cloud during the daytime, and even their shoes didn't wear out. 40 years. Can you imagine that? So 40 years He guarded them. Why? I'll tell you why. Because His plan for them had never changed, regardless to their unbelief, regardless to their disobedience. His plan for Israel still hasn't changed. They're still going to be the nation that evangelizes the world during the tribulation period. It's not going to be the church that does that. It's going to be Israel that does that. It's going to be those 144,000 preachers in the middle of the tribulation period to get saved and spread the gospel. Many Gentiles will be saved, though. If you read Matthew 24 and 25, you'll see that very clearly. But anyway, God guarded them and protected. He made a promise to Abraham some years earlier. Let's see, at least 400. At least 400, because there were 400 years in Egypt. At least 400 years earlier, He made a promise to Abraham that that land would be theirs. So the people, they were saved and they were safeguarded. God protected them. When you have God's will, like I say, His will still doesn't change, as I'm certainly a testimony of that. And His plan for Israel. And beside, there's a tribe there to Judah, who one day would have a descendant named Jesus. And so certainly God was going to guard them, amen? So we see the people, notice the path. It was a strange path. Joshua said, you've never been there before. You see, God, if we're going to live a life of victory, God's going to require us to do some things that just doesn't seem logical, some strange things, amen? Oh, you mean quit the post office and go to Bible college? That could be. Go into the mission field? That could be. How about tithing, amen? How about faithfully attending church? Things people have never done before. I can't afford to tithe, preacher. Actually, can't afford not to.
That's right.
It made a difference in 1978 when Carol and I joined Victory over on James Island. And we joined. We didn't partially join, we joined. Amen? If they were having church, we were there. If they were having revival, we were there. If they were having soul winning, we were there. If they were cleaning the church, we were there. And what a difference it made in our marriage and in our home to have our family serving God.
Yep.
A strange path. Folks that we used to hang around with used to say, you don't need to go to church every Sunday. A friend of mine, I fish with a lot, I've told us before, called me and said, well, let's go fishing tomorrow on Saturday. I said, I don't go fishing on Sunday, I don't go to church. It won't hurt you to miss one. It may hurt you to miss one. A strange path. Do something you've never done before. Go for some place you've never been before. Launch out to the deep, Jesus said. I have a friend. In fact, he wished me a happy birthday on Facebook. I've known him since Bible college in 1983. We were at Bible college together. When I started the church in Atlanta, he was my song leader, and his wife was my piano player. After, 4 years, I remember that he said, preacher, he worked for Fannie Mae at the time, I think. He had been in New Mexico on business. He came to me. He said, preacher, God has put New Mexico in my heart, and I just have a desire to go and start a church. And I said, Brent, you've got, as much as I'm going to miss you and Jeannie and the children and what you mean to the ministry. And he was faithful. I mean, it didn't matter what needed to be done. He would do it. Anyway, he said, God, I want to go there and start a church. And I said, well, anything I can do to help you. And I actually ordained him in May of '88. He left in July of '88 to start Gospel Light Baptist Church in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, outside of Albuquerque. And they had a high Sunday about a year ago of 750, and 700 now, about thereabouts. Why? Because God asked him to do something he'd never done before. Pack up his family, rent a truck, drive to New Mexico, started in a little block building. In fact, I preached his ordination service, and I preached his charter service in 1989. What a blessing it's been for him to take that strange path. There's also a supernatural path. Why? Only God could give them the promised land. Amen. There were giants there. There were walls there. But only God could provide that.
Yep.
By the way, it's already provided. Our part is to take what God's already given. I'll come in with that a little later. It was supernatural. Why? Because 40 years earlier, the spies had said, there are giants there and the city have walls around them. We cannot take it. Supernatural. You can never know the obstacles just Carol and I have had since April of 1982. The difficulties. Health, heart attack, a few things along the way. Obstacles the devil fighting. Supernatural. John 10:10, Jesus said, I'm come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. Only God could, in fact, God had already given the land, as a matter of fact. And God's already given us everything we need as well. So this path was strange. They'd never been there before. I'd never quit a job and left. In fact, I've been moved away with my family either. And going to college, back to college. I'd never done that before. Because they supplied path as well. Why? Because everything they needed was there. Everything they needed was there already. Houses were built that they didn't have to build. Wells were dug that they didn't have to dig. Vineyards were planted that they didn't have to plant. I said all that to say, all they needed as a nation was in a place. All we need as a Christian is in a person. It's in a person. They were blessed by being in the right place. We're blessed. They were blessed and had victory by being in the right place, and we're blessed and have victory by being in the right person. The right person. Romans 8:17 says, "And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ." So all that He has, we have available to us. Available to us. Salvation makes it all available, but faith gives us access. I'll come to that in a minute too. It's available. I said the people, they were saved, they were safeguarded. I said the path, it was strange, it was supernatural, and it was supplied. It was supplied. As I said earlier, nobody knows the difficulties we've faced often sometimes over the past 30 years, but never was there a need not met. Never was there a need not met. You can't know the checks that came in the mail and things like that. I've told this before, I'm going to tell it again though. We were meeting in a Seventh-day Adventist building, as a matter of fact, when I was pastoring in Atlanta, which they didn't meet on Sundays, they met on Saturday, so we used it on Sunday and we used it on Thursday. And we were paying $150 a week to use that building just for 2 services a week. But it did have everything we needed. It had a baptistry, had padded pews and stuff like that. I had a heart attack in May of 1988. May 26th, as a matter of fact. Don't remember it well, I remember a little bit of it, but anyway, while I was in the hospital recovering from surgery, a pastor friend of mine came to visit me, and he said, "Brother Baxley, y'all are looking for a building and a place, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, we are." And he said, "There's a church in Lawrenceville, New Life Baptist Church. They have a double-wide trailer on 4 acres of land. There's only 3 families left, and they're about to dissolve or sell the property. Would you like to talk with them?" I said, "Sure, I would." And so I met with the 3 families, went with 3 families, and I said, they said, would you come and hold a service on a Sunday night for us in our place?" I said, "Sure, I will." I did, and I took our church with us on Sunday night, and I met with the 3 families. I said, "Here's what I'll do." I said, "I'd like for y'all to come and be a part of our services, and you decide if you would like to merge the two churches together. We'll take over the property. $400 a month to pay for the building and the land. And they did, and they came, all three families came and stood for our church, so we want to be a part of this church, and we joined together. And God gave us land and a building for less than we were paying rent. Why? Because He supplies when we go where we've never been before. When we take that step and we cross that Jordan River and we step over into the Promised Land. I said, the people, the path, the promise. Notice the confidence that's required. 40 years earlier, they had reached. Why didn't they go in? It wasn't because of the giants. It wasn't because of the walls. Hebrews 3:19 says, so then we see they could not enter in because of unbelief. You see, they believed God could and would, but didn't believe God already had. Time and time again, He said, I have given it to you. And the same is true for you and me. It's already ours. Victory is already ours. It's already been won. Again, I said it a minute ago, and I'll say it again. Salvation makes all this available, but faith gives us access to it.
That's right.
Romans 5:2 says, by whom, speaking of Christ, we also have access by faith into this grace when we stand and rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Romans 5:1 gives us salvation by faith. Romans 5:2 gives us supply by faith. If we're saved by faith, everything else is by faith as well.
That's right.
So it required them to believe God. It required them to do something. You know what that believing God had to do? They had to step out and obey. They had to step into the river and wait for God to dry it up. They had to trust God to keep His word, as He will. Notice the confidence that is required. Notice the consequences that resulted. Verse number 17 of chapter 3. It says, and all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over the Jordan. They all passed over on dry ground. Why? Because they know and believed the promise of God. They obeyed. They obeyed the command of God.
That's right.
Go boldly, go where you've never been before. The people, the path, and the promise. Father, we thank you for a simple little message. I pray that we would have the courage and the faith to obey when it doesn't seem possible, when it just doesn't, it contradicts what other people say or what we know. But God, we just trust and obey because we know you'll bless it. I thank you and give you praise for it. For us, you know, I pray you praise. Amen and amen.